Hey everybody, it's Danilo from the King Realty Group. Hope everyone's having a great Friday, and hope everyone's had a great month. It's been a month since we did our last video in October, and we've had some new stats released by the Toronto Real Estate Board for the month of October, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff today. So there's a few topics that we're going to cover today, and hopefully this is, again, the intention is to give you a bit of information on what's going on in the Toronto real estate market or the GTA market as a whole, and to hopefully aid you in, making those important decisions whether you're buying or selling. So one of the first things we're going to talk about, guys, is obviously the stats and the numbers of October. Another topic we're going to definitely talk about is mortgages, just because, we've had a new policy that's going to be implemented as of January, so there's a little bit of talk about there. And also a little bit about consumer behavior and how buyers and sellers are interacting with each other in the GTA over the last month. Okay, so first and foremost, we're going to talk about these numbers. So wanted to let you know that there's actually been a spike in sales from September to October. That's about a 12% spike in sales, meaning that those jumped obviously from the month of September to October. That's a normal figure. I would say that there's normally more sales in October than September in many years. However, a 12% jump is significant. And what we can say about that is that, it seems like buyers are they're unwinding from that whole policy change that the government implemented earlier this year. It seems like they're understanding that the market is still strong, and they're coming out and buying homes, and there's just a bit more activity from their end. It makes sense, and that's something we'll talk about a little later with the consumer behavior part. So what are some of the stats? So we've actually had 7,118 sales in the month of October. That's up 12%, and still lower than last year in October, but last year was a record year, so it's very hard to beat record years, obviously. Let's see here. So average sales price actually is $780,000. This is up 2.3% from last year, so still a higher sale price. You would get a higher sale price today than you would in October of 2016, and it's actually up 1% from the month of September, so it has jumped from last month as well. We do know that low-rise has been affected the most over the last few months, and it's still apparent today because low-rise homes, detached, semi-detaches, they're actually dropped in price about 2.5% in all of the GTA. Okay. Townhouses, however, at $629,000, we're up 7.4%, and the biggest housing that obviously, ever since these rules have been implemented, they've kind of had their own trajectory, right? So condos in downtown are still selling, and they're still getting 20% over the last year's sales price, and that's still apparent today. Their condos are an average $523,000, and that's up 22% from October of 2016, and that's significant. Okay. There's still sales going on. Obviously there's been a jump from last year to this year, from September to October, and that's a good sign for anybody selling in the fall market. I'm sure you're doing a lot better than anybody who sold in summer, and there's buyers out there, buying some of this inventory that we have. Okay, so those are the numbers, guys. Take it for what it is. Every month we have different set of numbers to deal with, and I think this is actually a favorable time for a seller versus what it was a few months ago. That's for sure. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is mortgages. So OFSI, they actually just approved the stress test for uninsured mortgages starting January 1st, 2018. So what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what's in place today. There was already a stress test that was put in place last year for anybody who had an insured mortgage. And what is an insured mortgage? Every time you buy a property and you put under 20% down payment, that becomes an insured mortgage, meaning the CMHC or Canada Guarantee or Genworth is going to insure your mortgage because the lender wants to be protected because your loan to value ratio is less than 80%. Okay, so if you're only putting 10% down, normally you have to put, sometimes $10,000 to maybe $15,000 more in insurance, just so that the lender is comfortable, financing this property at 90%. So what happened last year is that in an attempt to cool down the market, they implemented a stress test. So at the moment, instead of being able to get approved by the best rate, which in those times was about 2.5%, they had to get approved at the Bank of Canada rate, which is at this point 3.84 or 4.84, and that obviously is going to lower the approval that you're going to get when you go to a mortgage. So same thing's happening in January. The difference is that now not only insured mortgages under 20% down payment, even uninsured mortgages, which is somebody putting in 20 or more % down, is going to get a lower approval in the new year. And this is because now you have to get approved to a stress test and not the best rate of, let's say, 3%, which is today. You're going to have to get approved at 4.84, which means obviously your approval will be a lot lower. And the reason they're doing this is in the attempt to obviously make sure that there's no not a lot of people taking a lot of mortgage loans, and to make sure that you're able to sustain any sort of interest rate hikes that may happen in the next few years, for example. Okay. So hey, what does that mean for the average person? I mean, if you're a first-time buyer putting over 20%, you may want to try to get an approval before the end of the year, just to see, if you can get a higher approval. Maybe you get a better house, more expensive home in this year versus next year. Maybe there's an investor out there who already has a primary residence. He needs to put down 20% to purchase a second or third home. Your approval will be lower in January. So maybe it makes sense to see what you can get approved for today before the end of the year, just to see, what you can do. Those are the type of things that we might be seeing here. We might see people rushing in to lock in interest rates before the new year. You might also see people extending amortizations from 25 to 30 years to lower those monthly payments. There's things that you can do to kind of circumvent these changes that are coming up. So any questions, guys, related to the mortgage, I'm hoping I explained it pretty clearly, but if there's any questions with the rules coming in January, send us a message, comment to this video, and we'll reply right away. The other thing I want to talk to you guys just before we get off this is consumer behavior. So obviously, there's kind of a psychological effect that comes about a general public when a government policy is put into place. So I'll give you an example. In May and March of last year, we had the housing policy, which implemented 12 rules to try to cool down the housing market. That was the intent of these policies, to cool it down, and I think that it did. Now, maybe a lot of people argue that the cooling was already happening naturally, and that these rules just exacerbated it. And that's possible. But another thing is that when these rules come into place, a lot of people tend to sit back and kind of see and watch and wait to see what happens into the future, because they're unsure. So there's a lot of buyers who stayed on the sidelines, and a lot of sellers who said, oh my God, this is now the time that I have to put my house for sale, because I want to get that huge price that everybody's getting when they're selling, and I don't want to lose out on that time frame, because timing is very important in real estate. So a lot of listings went up, a lot of buyers stayed on the sidelines, nothing was getting bought. A lot of sales, a lot of properties were on the market and maybe weren't even getting sold. So we're seeing a difference now in the month of October, month of November. Obviously, the numbers are showing us that 12% hike between September and October means that buyers are now starting to buy. Maybe this whole psychological effect of policy changes is now unwinding, and these guys are the momentum of sales is going to entice people to come back into the market. Well, we have a pretty healthy market at the moment, and it's going to continue in that direction. So again, guys, these stats, these videos, we're talking about the GTA, the Toronto Real Estate Board in general. This covers a lot of geographical area here. I mean, I can give a blanket answer for the GTA, but it doesn't. It's no good for anybody in their specific communities. People ask me after watching some of my videos, hey, that's not true in my area. That's not true in my area. My area is acting differently. That's valid. Get in touch with us, guys. Where do you live? Where do you want to be? The market's different in different pockets, and we have to take a look and dive deep into the stats and to give you a better answer when it comes to anything specific. Everyone's individual situation is different, and we understand that. And so if you need any specifics, please get in touch with us, guys. 647-931-1313 or info@kingrealty.to. And we'll get in touch right away. Hope you guys have a great weekend. This is a little bit longer video than normal, but hopefully some of you guys stuck to the end. Take it easy, guys. Have a good day.